The massive alien ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a gleaming silver mountain. News crews from every nation pointed their cameras skyward as the vessel settled onto the prepared landing zone outside Geneva. The ship was 3 times larger than any stadium humanity had ever built, its surface covered in symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the sunlight. President John Carter stood behind bulletproof glass in the United Nations building, watching the historic moment unfold. Beside him, Defense Secretary Lisa Monroe checked her tablet for the 100th time that morning. Admiral Pete Jackson remained perfectly still, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the alien craft. The first beings to emerge from the ship walked on 4 legs, but stood upright like centaurs from ancient mythology. Their leader wore robes that sparkled with embedded crystals, and a device around his neck translated his words into perfect English. Behind him came creatures that looked like walking trees, beings made of what appeared to be living crystal, and others that floated in transparent spheres filled with swirling gas. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire had traveled across the galaxy for this moment. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had welcomed 47 different species into the Galactic Council. Each time, the newly discovered civilizations had responded with wonder, gratitude, and immediate submission to Council authority. The humans would be no different. The greeting ceremony followed ancient protocols. Zethkar presented the Council's official greeting, a crystalline tablet that contained the history of galactic civilization. He spoke of the 12 great species that ruled the stars, their magnificent cities on 1,000 worlds, and the honor they were bestowing upon humanity by offering them membership in the Council. President Carter accepted the tablet with appropriate ceremony, but Dr. Amy Foster noticed something the aliens missed. The president's science advisor had been monitoring alien communications for months, learning their languages and studying their technology. The humans knew far more about the Galactic Council than the Council realized. The formal presentation took place in the General Assembly Hall, broadcast live to every corner of Earth. Zethkar stood at the podium, his 4 legs planted firmly as he delivered what he considered a generous offer. The Council would accept humanity as a junior member species. Earth would be governed by Council law. Human technology would be evaluated and approved by Council scientists, and human expansion into space would proceed only with Council permission. In return, humanity would receive protection from the Council's vast fleets, access to selected Council technologies, and the privilege of serving the greater galactic community. The ambassador made it clear that this was not a negotiation. The Council's offer was final, and acceptance was expected immediately. The alien delegation waited confidently for President Carter's response. Zethkar had brought gifts of advanced medical scanners and atmospheric processors, tokens of the Council's benevolence. The other ambassadors whispered among themselves in their various languages, already planning how to divide Earth's resources among the Council's member worlds. President Carter rose slowly from his seat and walked to the podium. The entire world held its breath as he began to speak. His voice was calm and steady, carrying the weight of humanity's future in every word. Ambassador Zethkar, honored delegates of the Galactic Council, we thank you for traveling so far to bring us this offer. We have listened carefully to your words and considered your proposal with the seriousness it deserves. The alien ambassadors nodded approvingly. The human leader was showing proper respect for Council authority. Several of them were already composing reports to their homeworlds about another successful first contact. However, Carter continued, after careful consideration, we must respectfully decline your generous invitation. Earth and humanity will chart our own course among the stars. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Zethkar's translator device sparked and whined as if struggling to process words it had never encountered before. No species had ever rejected Council membership. The concept was so foreign that many of the alien languages lacked words to describe it. Defense Secretary Lisa Monroe and Admiral Pete Jackson flanked the president as he explained humanity's position. Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward with a tablet containing decades of intercepted Council communications. The humans had been watching and listening, learning about the Council's methods of control and domination. We appreciate the Council's desire to maintain order in the galaxy, Carter said, but we have observed how member species are treated. Their freedom restricted, their resources harvested, their cultures suppressed. This is not the partnership we seek. Zethkar finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled whistle. You cannot refuse the Council's protection. The galaxy is dangerous for primitive species. Without our guidance, humanity will surely destroy itself. Admiral Jackson stepped forward, his expression grim but determined. Ambassador, with respect, humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the development of nuclear weapons. We think we can handle whatever the galaxy has to offer. The Admiral gestured to the window where human spacecraft could be seen in orbit around Earth. The vessels were sleek and powerful, their designs unlike anything in the Council's databases. Humanity had been preparing for this day longer than the aliens realized. Dr. Foster activated her tablet, displaying star charts that showed human settlements on Mars, Europa, and 3 nearby star systems. We've been expanding for decades, she explained. Our colonies are already established and thriving. We don't need Council permission to explore the stars. The alien delegation erupted in confusion and disbelief. Species from across the galaxy began talking at once, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. The crystalline Nexari representative chimed like broken bells, while the gas-dwelling ethereals swirled frantically in their containment spheres. President Carter raised his hand for silence. We don't seek conflict with the Council, but neither will we submit to its authority. Humanity values freedom, self-determination, and cooperation between equals. If the Council shares these values, we welcome friendship and trade. If not, we wish you well on your journey home. Ambassador Zethkar's robes had stopped sparkling, and his crystalline decorations had turned a dull gray color. In his centuries of service, he had never encountered such defiance. The humans spoke of the Council as if it were just another government rather than the supreme authority of galactic civilization. This is not over, Zethkar declared, his voice carrying undertones of threat. The Council does not accept rejection. You will reconsider this foolish decision, or face the consequences of standing alone in a hostile galaxy. President Carter smiled politely. Ambassador, humanity has never been afraid of standing alone when principles are at stake. We've done it before, and we'll do it again if necessary. As the alien delegation prepared to depart, news of humanity's rejection was already spreading across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. On distant worlds, Council representatives watched their communication screens in shock, as reports of the unprecedented human response flooded their networks. 6 months had passed since humanity rejected the Council's offer, and the galaxy was still reeling from the shock. On the Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions continued day and night as representatives from 12 species debated their response to the human defiance. Ambassador. Zethkar stood before the great circular chamber where the Council met, his forelegs trembling with barely controlled rage. The crystalline formations on his robes had remained gray since his return from Earth, a visible sign of his humiliation. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps of human space, marked with red symbols indicating blocked trade routes and patrol zones. The economic sanctions are in place, Zethkar reported to the assembled Council members. No member species may trade with the humans. All established shipping lanes through human space have been declared off-limits. Their colonies on Mars and Europa are completely cut off from galactic commerce. Council Chairman Mordek of the Ancient Architects nodded his massive stone head approvingly. The architects had ruled the galaxy for millennia before the Council was formed, and their word carried enormous weight. Good, Mordek rumbled, his voice like grinding boulders. The humans will learn that isolation brings suffering. They will beg for membership within a year. Admiral Vexithanor of the militant Cretan species rose from his seat, his scaled body gleaming under the chamber's lights. The Cretan were the Council's primary military force, feared across the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency. Chairman, I request permission to deploy the Third Fleet to human space. A show of force will convince them to reconsider their foolish decision. The request sparked heated debate among the Council members. The gas-dwelling ethereals swirled nervously in their containment spheres, while the plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves in agitation. The crystalline Nexari chimed their disapproval, their musical voices creating discordant harmonies that filled the chamber. Violence should be our last resort, sang the lead Nexari representative. The humans may be primitive, but they possess unknown capabilities. Our intelligence reports suggest their technology is more advanced than we initially believed. Admiral Vexthenor's eyes glowed with predatory hunger.
All the more reason to strike quickly before they become a greater threat.
My scouts report that human ships have been detected in 17 different star systems. They're expanding despite our blockade. On Earth, Director of Space Operations Kate Sullivan reviewed the latest reports from human colonies with President Carter and his advisors. The large wall screen in the Situation Room displayed a three-dimensional map of human space, with green dots representing thriving settlements and blue lines showing new trade routes. The Mars colonies are actually producing surplus food now, Sullivan reported, her voice filled with quiet pride. The atmospheric processors we developed are working better than expected. Europa's mining operations have increased output by 30% since the Council blockade began. President Carter leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing on his lips. And trade with non-Council species? Secretary of State Dan Murphy stepped forward with his own tablet. We've established formal trading agreements with the Solari Republic and the Wanderer Fleet. Both groups were eager to deal with us once word spread about our fair trading practices. The Solari are particularly interested in our medical technology. Dr. Amy Foster added her scientific perspective. The energy efficiency improvements we've made to our ships have caught the attention of several independent species. They're impressed that we share our technological advances freely, rather than hoarding them like the Council does. Admiral Pete Jackson studied the tactical display with the eye of a career military officer. The Council patrol ships are getting bolder. They've stopped and searched 6 human freighters in the past month, claiming routine inspections. Captain Roy Bennett reported that Council ships tried to board his vessel near the Centauri system. What was the outcome? Carter asked. Bennett followed protocols and requested assistance. Captain Sam Rodriguez arrived with the UES Defiance within an hour. The Council ships backed down when faced with our escort destroyers, but they're clearly testing our resolve. The President nodded thoughtfully. They're learning that we're not as helpless as they assumed. What about military recruitment? General Paul Young spoke up from his position near the tactical display. Volunteers are flooding in from every nation. People want to serve in the Space Defense Force. Our training facilities on Luna are operating at maximum capacity, and we're ahead of schedule on ship construction. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, human exploration vessels continued their missions despite Council interference. Captain Roy Bennett commanded the New Frontier, a fast scout ship designed for long-range reconnaissance. His current mission took him to the edge of the Vega system, where intelligence reports suggested an independent colony might be interested in human contact. The colony turned out to be inhabited by a species called the Miners, silicon-based beings who had fled Council space generations ago to escape taxation and resource seizure. They lived in asteroid habitats, extracting rare metals and trading with smugglers who operated outside Council authority. Your people rejected the Council? Asked Mine Chief Korthak, his rocky features expressing amazement. No species has ever done such a thing. We thought it was impossible. Bennett smiled as he shared technical specifications for human mining equipment. My people believe in freedom of choice. We don't force anyone to join us, and we don't expect others to control us either. The Mine Chief's crystalline eyes glowed brighter. The Council takes 60% of everything we produce. They claim it's for galactic security, but we see none of the benefits. Would your people trade with us directly? Absolutely, Bennett replied. We judge our trading partners by their honesty and reliability, not by their Council membership status. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council received disturbing reports from their intelligence networks. 3 member species had formally requested meetings to discuss their continued membership. The requests came from worlds that had been loyal Council members for centuries, but recent human contact had given them ideas about independence. Admiral Vexithanor slammed his clawed fist on the conference table. The humans are spreading like a virus, infecting our loyal worlds with their dangerous ideas about freedom and self-determination. We must act before this rebellion spreads further. Spymaster Velnara of the shadow-dwelling Umbrals emerged from the darkness at the edge of the chamber. Her species served as the Council's intelligence gatherers, and her words carried the weight of classified information. The situation is worse than we feared. Human technology is advancing at an unprecedented rate. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more efficient, and their defensive systems are completely unknown to us. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For the first time in their history, they faced a species that not only rejected their authority, but possessed the power to challenge it effectively. Chairman Mordek's ancient voice rumbled through the silence. How is this possible? They were barely capable of spaceflight when we first contacted them. They've been preparing for decades, Velnara replied. Our analysis suggests they've been monitoring our communications and studying our technology. They learned everything about us while revealing nothing about themselves. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. The humans had not only rejected the Council's generous offer, but had been actively spying on them for years. The primitive species they had planned to subjugate had been playing a game of galactic chess while the Council believed they were teaching children to count. 1 year after the first human rejection, the Galactic Council faced their worst nightmare becoming reality. 3 member species had formally submitted requests to withdraw from the Council, citing humanity's model of voluntary cooperation as their inspiration. The crystalline Nixari were the first to make the announcement, followed quickly by the ocean-dwelling reef dwellers and the nomadic wanderer fleet. Council Chairman Mordek stood in his private chambers, staring at the formal withdrawal documents that covered his ancient stone desk. Each document bore the official seals of species that had served the Council faithfully for centuries. The Nexari alone controlled 15 star systems rich in rare crystals essential for faster-than-light communication. Losing them would cripple the Council's ability to maintain contact across their vast territory. This is impossible, Mordek rumbled to himself, his voice echoing off the chamber walls. Species do not leave the Council. The Council is eternal. The Council is order. Ambassador Zethkar entered the chamber, his 4 legs moving with nervous energy. The Vorthan diplomat had aged visibly since his encounter with the humans, and his once proud bearing had been replaced by barely controlled anxiety. Chairman, we have received more disturbing news from our intelligence networks. Speak, Mordek commanded, though he dreaded what he might hear. The humans have established colonies in 12 new star systems in the past 3 months. Each colony is welcomed by local populations who were previously under Council protection. The humans offer technology, medical aid, and educational assistance without demanding tribute or political submission. Mordek's massive stone features twisted into an expression of rage. They are buying loyalty with gifts. This is not sustainable. They will exhaust their resources and collapse. Zethkar shifted uncomfortably, his crystalline decorations clicking together like wind chimes in a storm. Chairman, our economic analysts report that human resource production has increased by 400% since they began expanding. Their efficiency levels exceed anything in our databases. On Earth, President John Carter met with his expanded cabinet. In the newly constructed situation room beneath the White House, the room buzzed with activity as staff members coordinated humanities, rapid expansion across the galaxy. Wall screens displayed real-time reports from dozens of human colonies, each one showing population growth, resource production, and technological development. General Paul Young pointed to a tactical display showing human ship movements throughout known space. Operation Starward is ahead of schedule. We've established permanent settlements in 12 systems, with another 20 sites under development. Our colonists are reporting enthusiastic cooperation from local populations. What about Council interference? Carter asked. Admiral Pete Jackson stepped forward with his report. Council patrol ships continue to shadow our vessels, but they haven't attempted direct confrontation since the incident near Centauri. Our defensive capabilities seem to have convinced them that military action would be costly. Dr. Amy Foster activated her scientific displays, showing technological advancement charts that would have amazed the Council intelligence analysts. Our research teams have made breakthrough discoveries in energy production, materials science, and space propulsion. The data-sharing agreements with our new allies have accelerated development beyond our most optimistic projections. Director Kate Sullivan added her perspective on colonial operations. The most significant development is the voluntary nature of our expansion. We're not conquering worlds or forcing compliance. Local populations are requesting human assistance and protection from Council exploitation. Secretary of State Dan Murphy nodded agreement. The Solari Republic has formally dissolved their Council membership to join our alliance. Their representative, Ambassador Kiara, will arrive next week to sign the Mutual Defense Pact. She reports that 6 other species are preparing similar moves. The news from Earth would have terrified the Council if they had known the full extent of human activities. Captain Sam Rodriguez commanded a task force of 12 destroyers providing escort services for species fleeing Council space. His ships were equipped with defensive systems that made Council vessels look like antiques, and his crews were trained in tactics that the galactic establishment had never encountered. Captain Rodriguez to Fleet Command, he reported during a routine patrol near the Nexari homeworld. We've successfully escorted 3 Nexari colony ships to safety in human space. No Council interference detected, but their surveillance drones are maintaining distance observation. Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Vex Thanor paced the Council war room like a caged predator. His scaled hide rippled with frustrated energy as he studied battle plans that his subordinates had prepared for a potential assault on human space. The plans grew more complex and costly with each revision, as intelligence reports revealed new aspects of human military capability. "Admiral," reported his aide, a young Cretan officer named Thekvar, "our scouts have attempted to penetrate human defensive perimeters around their core systems. 3 reconnaissance ships have been detected and escorted out of human space by vessels we cannot identify from our databases." Vexthanor's eyes glowed with predatory interest. "Escorted out? Not destroyed?" "Correct, Admiral. The human ships appeared alongside our scouts, transmitted polite warnings about trespassing in protected space, and provided safe passage to the border. Our pilots reported that the human vessels demonstrated superior speed and maneuverability throughout the encounter." The Admiral's claws scraped against the metal table as he considered this information. The humans were showing restraint and mercy, qualities that the Council considered weaknesses. Yet their technological superiority was becoming undeniable, which suggested that their peaceful approach was a choice rather than a necessity. Spymaster Velnara materialized from the shadows at the edge of the war room, her dark form barely visible even in direct light. "Admiral, I bring intelligence that changes everything we thought we knew about the humans." "What have you discovered?" Vex Thanor demanded. "The humans have been monitoring our communications for decades, possibly since before official first contact. They know our military capabilities, our economic systems, and our political structures better than we know ourselves. This was never an encounter with a primitive species. It was a carefully planned chess move by an opponent who had been studying us for generations." The revelation hit the Admiral like a physical blow. Everything the Council believed about human capabilities had been based on deliberately misleading information. The species they had dismissed as barely capable of spaceflight had been conducting sophisticated intelligence operations across the galaxy while maintaining perfect operational security. "How is this possible?" Vex Thanor whispered. "Human technology is not just advanced," Velnara continued. "It's fundamentally different from ours. Their ships use propulsion systems we don't understand. Their communications are encrypted with methods we cannot break, and their weapons operate on principles that our scientists cannot explain." In the main Council chamber, Chairman Mordek called an emergency session as reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The Reef Dwellers had officially announced their departure from the Council, taking with them control of 17 ocean worlds that produced essential biological materials. The Wanderer fleet had ceased all tribute payments and declared their intention to establish permanent bases in human-controlled space. "This crisis threatens the very foundation of galactic order," Mordek announced to the assembled representatives. "The humans have somehow convinced 3 of our most loyal member species to abandon their obligations to the Council. Their influence spreads like a plague, infecting our subjects with dangerous ideas about independence and self-determination." The gas-dwelling ethereals swirled frantically in their containment spheres, their translated voices creating a chorus of concern. "The humans offer something we have never provided: genuine partnership without domination. Our own subjects begin to question why they serve the Council when they could serve themselves." The plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves in agreement. "Reports from our agricultural worlds indicate widespread interest in human farming techniques that increase yields without depleting soil nutrients. Our colonists ask why the Council has never shared such beneficial knowledge." Mordek's ancient stone features darkened with rage as he realized the true scope of the threat. The humans were not just rejecting Council authority. They were demonstrating that the Council's authoritarian methods were unnecessary and counterproductive. Across the galaxy, species that had served the Council for centuries were beginning to imagine alternatives to subjugation and exploitation. The Council's worst fears became reality when humanity made a move that shook the galaxy to its core. Ambassador Janet Lewis stood before the Galactic Assembly, her image broadcast simultaneously to every world in Council space, through hijacked communication networks that human technicians had quietly accessed over the previous months. "Citizens of the galaxy," Lewis began, her voice calm and confident as she addressed billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "Today we announce the formation of the Free Worlds Alliance, a voluntary confederation based on the principles of self-determination, mutual cooperation, and shared prosperity." The broadcast reached every corner of Council space before their communication specialists could block it. On factory worlds where workers labored under harsh quotas, on mining planets where entire populations existed to extract resources for distant Council members, and on agricultural colonies where families struggled to feed themselves while shipping their harvests to wealthy core worlds. People stopped their work to listen. Any species, any world, any government that seeks freedom from oppression and the right to determine their own destiny is welcome to join us, Lewis continued. "We offer partnership, not domination. We share knowledge freely rather than hoarding it for the benefit of a privileged few. We believe that cooperation between equals creates stronger, more prosperous societies than rule by force." On Earth, President Carter watched the broadcast from the Oval Office alongside his senior staff. The decision to make this public appeal had not been taken lightly, but intelligence reports from across the galaxy indicated that the time was right for open confrontation with the Council's authority. "The response is already beginning," reported Director Kate Sullivan as she monitored communication channels throughout human space. "We're receiving official requests for alliance membership from 17 different species. 3 more have declared immediate independence from the Council and are requesting protection." Admiral Pete Jackson studied tactical displays showing the deployment of human forces throughout the galaxy. "Our ships are already moving to assist the Nexari evacuation. Captain Sam Rodriguez reports that his task force is escorting refugee convoys from 3 different systems. The Council has issued threats but hasn't moved to intercept." General Paul Young added his military perspective. "Intelligence suggests that Council forces are in disarray. They're receiving conflicting orders from different member species, and several of their military units have stopped responding to Central Command. The unity that gave them strength is breaking down." Dr. Amy Foster displayed scientific data that showed the dramatic improvements in living standards on worlds that had joined the Alliance. "Agricultural yields are up 30% on former Council worlds using our farming techniques. Medical advances we've shared have reduced disease rates by half in some populations. People can see the tangible benefits of cooperation rather than exploitation, Captain." Sam Rodriguez commanded the largest evacuation operation in galactic history as entire populations fled Council space to join the Alliance. His fleet of escort ships protected convoys of refugee vessels carrying millions of beings seeking freedom from Council oppression. The operation required precision, timing, and coordination across dozens of star systems. "This is Captain Rodriguez to Convoy 7, he transmitted, to a group of Nexari ships loaded with families and their possessions. "We have you on sensors. Maintain current heading and speed. Our escort destroyers will take flanking positions in 30 seconds. The response came in the musical chimes of Nexari communication. "Captain Rodriguez, we detect Council patrol ships moving to intercept. They demand we return to our assigned worlds immediately." "Negative on that return order," Rodriguez replied firmly. "You are now under Alliance protection. Any interference with this evacuation will be considered an act of aggression." 2 Council cruisers appeared on the edge of sensor range, their weapon systems powering up as they moved to block the refugee convoy. The ships were larger than Rodriguez's escorts, but human intelligence had long ago identified the weaknesses in Council military technology. "Council vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Free Worlds Alliance Defense Force. You are interfering with the lawful movement of beings who have chosen to exercise their right of self-determination. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Council captain's response crackled with arrogance and threat. "Human vessel, you have no authority in this sector. Return our citizens to Council space immediately, or we will take them by force." Rodriguez smiled grimly as he activated his ship's advanced defensive systems. "Council vessels, you are outgunned and outmatched. This is your final warning to withdraw. The engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons striking Council vessels with surgical accuracy that disabled propulsion and weapons without causing casualties. The superior Council cruisers found themselves drifting helplessly as human escorts completed the evacuation without losing a single refugee ship. On Nexus Prime, the Council war room erupted in chaos as reports of similar defeats poured in from across their territory. Admiral Vexthaner stared at tactical displays showing red icons representing disabled Council ships, while green symbols marked successful Alliance operations throughout Council space. "How is this possible?" demanded Chairman Mordek as he studied the battle reports. "Our cruisers outmassed their escorts by 10 to 1. Our weapons should have overwhelmed them easily." Spymaster Velnara emerged from the shadows with her analysis. "The humans are using technology that operates on completely different principles from our own. Their ships appear to manipulate space-time itself to achieve impossible acceleration and maneuverability. Their weapons penetrate our shields as if they don't exist." Admiral Vexthaner's scaled hide flushed with rage and humiliation. "My best captains report that human vessels moved faster than their targeting systems could track. Our most powerful weapons had no effect on their defensive screens. It's as if we're fighting with stone clubs against energy weapons." The situation deteriorated rapidly as news of Council military failures spread throughout their territory. On dozens of worlds, local populations declared independence and requested Alliance protection. Council governors found themselves isolated and powerless as their own security forces refused orders to suppress peaceful demonstrations. General Paul Young coordinated the Alliance response from Earth, deploying human forces to protect newly independent worlds while avoiding unnecessary confrontation with Council military units. "Our goal is liberation, not conquest," he reminded his field commanders. "Accept surrenders, protect civilians, and treat prisoners with dignity. We're building a new galactic order based on respect and cooperation." Captain Roy Bennett led a special operations team that provided support to resistance movements on Council worlds. His ships delivered medical supplies, communication equipment, and technical advisors to groups seeking independence. The operations required stealth and precision to avoid triggering larger conflicts. "This is Bennett to Alliance Command," he reported from a hidden base near a major Council industrial world. Local resistance leaders confirmed that 3 more factory complexes have gone on strike. Production of military supplies has dropped to 20% of normal levels. Council forces are too scattered to maintain order. The economic impact of the rebellion exceeded even Alliance projections. Trade routes that had operated for centuries ground to a halt as worlds stopped shipping resources to Council core systems. The carefully balanced economy that had enriched Council elites for millennia began collapsing as their exploited subjects chose freedom over profit. Secretary of State Dan Murphy negotiated formal treaties with newly independent governments, establishing the legal framework for the Free Worlds Alliance. "We're not just ending the Council's reign," he explained to President Carter. "We're creating something entirely new, a galactic civilization based on consent rather than conquest." The broadcast that Ambassador Lewis had delivered weeks earlier continued to resonate across the galaxy as its message spread beyond the reach of Council censorship. On remote worlds that had never questioned their subjugation, people began to imagine alternatives to endless servitude. The simple idea that they deserved better treatment sparked revolutions that the Council's vast military machine proved powerless to stop. In the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, the remaining representatives faced a crisis that threatened not just their authority, but their very survival as a governing body. Half their member species had declared independence, their military forces were demoralized and scattered, and their economic system was collapsing as subject worlds refused to continue feeding the machine of oppression that had sustained galactic order for thousands of years. 2 years after first contact, the Galactic Council had lost control of over half the galaxy. The Free Worlds Alliance now included 67 different species, while the remaining Council territories struggled with rebellions, economic collapse, and military defections. Admiral Vexthanor stood in the Council war room, his scaled features twisted with desperation as he prepared for what he knew would be the Council's final gambit. "Chairman Mordek has approved Operation Final Storm," Vexthanor announced to his assembled fleet commanders. "We will strike directly at the human homeworld with everything we have left. Without their leadership, this rebellion will collapse and order will be restored. The plan was born of desperation rather than strategy. The Council's remaining forces would combine into a massive assault fleet and attack Earth directly, hoping to capture or destroy humanity's leadership before the Alliance could respond. It was a desperate move that violated every principle of military wisdom, but the Council had run out of alternatives. Captain Roy Bennett's Deep Space Monitoring Network detected the Council fleet assembly 3 days before the attack began. His network of sensor platforms and spy ships provided the Alliance with intelligence capabilities that the Council couldn't match or counter. The information reached Admiral Pete Jackson within hours of the enemy fleet's departure from Council space. "They're coming with everything they have left," Jackson reported to President Carter during an emergency meeting in the White House Situation Room. Intelligence estimates 1,200 warships, including their largest dreadnoughts and battle carriers. It's the biggest fleet in galactic history. President Carter studied the tactical displays with the calm expression that had carried him through 2 years of galactic crisis. "How long do we have?" 48 hours until they reach the outer system," Jackson replied. "But we've been preparing for this possibility since the day we rejected their first offer." General Paul Young activated defensive position displays, showing the elaborate network of fortifications, mobile defense platforms, and hidden weapon systems that humanity had constructed throughout the Sol system. "Operation Aegis is ready for activation. Every asteroid, moon, and orbital station in the system has been prepared for defense. They'll face resistance at every step." Dr. Amy Foster added her scientific perspective. "Our new defensive technologies have been tested and deployed. The quantum disruption fields will neutralize their advantage in numbers, while our gravitational manipulation systems will give us tactical superiority they can't counter." Director Kate Sullivan coordinated the civilian evacuation from Earth's major cities while maintaining the industrial production necessary to support the defense. Non-essential personnel are being moved to secure facilities on Luna and Mars. Essential operations continue normally to avoid giving the enemy intelligence about our defensive preparations. The Council fleet entered the Sol system like an unstoppable tide of destruction. Admiral Vexthanor commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed the largest human vessels. His ships spread across space in battle formations that had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. "Begin the assault," Vexthanor ordered, his voice carrying the weight of Council authority across the fleet communication channels. "Target all human military installations and government facilities. Show them the price of defying galactic order." The first wave of Council ships encountered Captain Sam Rodriguez's outer defense force near the orbit of Pluto. The human ships were vastly outnumbered, but they fought with tactics and technology that confused and disrupted the Council advance. Rodriguez's vessels appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking at enemy formations before vanishing into the darkness of space. "Council fleet, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Alliance Defense Force," he transmitted on open channels. "You are trespassing in Sovereign Alliance territory. Withdraw immediately and no harm will come to you." Admiral Vexthanor's response crackled with fury. "Human vessels, surrender now and your death will be quick. Continue this resistance and we will ensure your entire species suffers for your arrogance." The battle that followed shattered every assumption the Council held about human military capability. Rodriguez's small force used advanced defensive systems to absorb massive enemy fire, while their weapons struck with devastating precision. Council ships that had seemed invincible found themselves disabled or destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand or counter. As the Council fleet pushed deeper into the system, they encountered the second line of defense near Jupiter. Hidden bases on the planet's moons erupted with defensive fire, while concealed weapon platforms emerged from the asteroid belt to attack the enemy flanks. Admiral Jackson had turned the entire outer system into a fortress that channeled the Council advance into carefully prepared killing zones. "Impossible," Vexthanor whispered as he watched his powerful fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had considered primitive. "How are they doing this?" The answer came from his own tactical officers as they analyzed the human defensive systems. The humans had weaponized gravity itself, creating fields that could crush enemy ships or deflect their weapons. Their defensive screens operated by manipulating space-time to redirect incoming fire. Most incredibly, Their ship seemed capable of existing in multiple locations simultaneously, making targeting nearly impossible. The final phase of the battle took place near Earth itself, where the remnants of the Council fleet faced Admiral Jackson's main defense force. The human admiral had positioned his ships in formations that maximized their technological advantages, while minimizing their exposure to enemy fire. The engagement was less a battle than a demonstration of overwhelming superiority. Admiral Vexithaner, Jackson transmitted to the enemy flagship as Council resistance collapsed around them. Your fleet is defeated and your mission has failed. Surrender now and we guarantee safe passage home for all survivors. The Council admiral stared at his tactical displays, showing the destruction of his once mighty fleet. Of the 1,200 ships that had entered human space, fewer than 200 remained operational. His own flagship was surrounded by human vessels that could have destroyed it easily, but chose restraint instead. I surrender, Vexthanor said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of defeat across the galaxy. The Council fleet yields to human authority. The surrender was broadcast throughout Council space, where the news triggered the final collapse of their government. On world after world, Council representatives fled or were peacefully removed from power as local populations declared independence. The military defeated Earth had broken the last vestiges of Council authority and credibility. Chairman Mordek faced a delegation of his own people in the Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The ancient architect's stone features showed the wear of stress and defeat as he realized that his millennia-old civilization had been brought down by a species they had first contacted only 2 years earlier. The Council is dissolved, Mordek announced to the nearly empty chamber. The age of our rule is ended. President Carter received the formal surrender in a ceremony broadcast live throughout the galaxy. The event took place aboard the Alliance flagship, with representatives from dozens of species present to witness the end of the old galactic order and the beginning of something new. Today marks not the victory of one species over another, Carter said in his address to the galaxy, but the triumph of freedom over oppression, cooperation over domination. The Free Worlds Alliance welcomes all species who seek to build a better future based on mutual respect and shared prosperity. Admiral Jackson was promoted to Supreme Commander of Alliance Defense Forces, while Captain Rodriguez became the first human to command an integrated multi-species fleet. Dr. Amy Foster established the Galactic Research Consortium, creating a framework for sharing scientific knowledge that benefited all Alliance members equally. The former Council worlds were welcomed into the Alliance as equal partners rather than conquered territories. Their populations, freed from centuries of exploitation, began to prosper under governments of their own choosing. Trade flowed freely between worlds, technologies were shared openly, and the galaxy experienced a golden age of peace and progress. In the final scene, President Carter stood in the Alliance Assembly Hall on Earth, looking out at representatives from over 100 worlds working together as equals. The hall buzzed with dozens of different languages as beings from across the galaxy collaborated on projects that would have been impossible under Council rule. What we've accomplished here, Carter reflected to Ambassador Lewis as they watched the proceedings, started with a simple principle: no one has the right to rule others without their consent. That idea changed everything. The galaxy that had once cowered under Council authority now thrived under Alliance cooperation. What the Council had seen as humanity's arrogant rejection of galactic order had actually been the first step toward creating a civilization worthy of the stars themselves.